if everyone okay with that, we can go ahead with the meeting, please. Good. Yeah, our today's topic is making caring visible and valuable. It is a very, very, very important topic today, and we will be raising awareness of caring, highlighting the challenges unpaid carers face, recognizing the contribution they make to the families and communities. We have two wonderful speakers who will guide us through above subject. So I'm sure by the end of the meeting, we will all be equipped with knowledge of challenges and difficulties that unpaid carers face. First of all, I would like to start with our wonderful speaker, Karen Leet from Caring Together. After Karen is going to be John Paul. So after John Paul from Northwest Anglia NHS Foundation Trust. After that, I will give the floor to everyone, whoever want to contribute to this wonderful topic. You will be given chance, to demonstrate whatever you want to say. Karen, if you hear me, over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Is that okay for everyone?
Yes, I think so. Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. Before Karen start, if any one of you have a question, can you please put it on the chat area? Then after that, Judith will help you, to ask and to answer the question, or at the end of the session. Anyway, yeah. Thank you, Karen. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So hello everybody. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting today. My name is Karen Leet, and I'm the Awareness and Voice Coordinator for Caring Together. So basically it's my job to go out and spread the word about Caring Together, what we can do to support carers in the community, how you can spot carers in your workplace. And the other part of my job is being a voice coordinator, which is a fancy title for listening to what carers tell us, so that we can produce services that carers want and need, rather than produce services that aren't being used. So that's a huge part of my job, is actually listening to carers about what they want. So a little bit about us. Caring Together is a charity. We started way back in 1974, and you all look very young and youthful. I'm sure you won't remember 1974, but back then there used to be a soap opera on TV called Crossroads, and it was set in a motel in Birmingham and followed the stories of the guests and the people who worked at the hotel. And it was very much maligned, in as much as it was a very low budget soap opera. So there were lots of wobbly sets. There was never any rehearsal time. So there was lots of fluffed lines, but it was on at tea time and the nation seemed to watch it in their droves, and it was much loved. And one of the storylines was that the owner of the hotel, Meg Richardson, her son Sandy had a car accident and ended up in a wheelchair. And the storyline followed her struggle to look after Sandy, keep the motel running, maintain relationships with family and friends, and her struggle to do all that. And viewers wrote in by their thousands and said, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm looking after somebody. I'm having very little help. And the producers of the show were so touched by the letters that they decided they set up a research fund and look at what carers wanted. And really quickly it became apparent that what carers wanted was really good practical help, usually in their own homes. And they wanted to be heard, they wanted to be recognised as carers, and they wanted to be able to say what they wanted and what they needed and have people listen to them. So they scrapped the research fund and they set up Crossroads Caring for Carers, which was the first a charity of its kind to actually look after unpaid carers. Since then, we've gone through various connotations with names. We've amalgamated with other smaller charities. And in 1987, we became Carers Trust. And a lot of people will still remember us as Carers Trust. But almost 2 years ago now, we changed our name to Caring Together as the local charity. So although we're under the family umbrella of Carers Trust, the local charity Caring Together covers Cambridgeshire, Peterborough and Norfolk. And we wanted it to be a local charity because we wanted to have services that we provide be really relevant to local people. And also any donations that might be given are spent locally as well. So that was really important to us. So our statement really is that our vision is that carers have choices. Time and time again, carers tell us that they feel that they're trapped and have no choices in what services they have, what support they have. And so that's really important to us. And the values are that we're inclusive. We are open to anybody who is a carer who wants to ring us. We have no age limit. We take children from the age of 5 as carers, but we have no upper age limit. We put our people first, so carers are always at the centre of what we do, and we aim to be really knowledgeable about what we're talking about. So all of the facts and figures that I give you today will be the latest or most relevant figures that we have. So definition of a carer, for us, that's somebody who is unpaid. So although I talk to lots of doctors and nurses, because they're paid, we wouldn't consider them as carers. So our carer is somebody who's unpaid. And they can look after a family member, a partner, a friend, a neighbour, and they can look after them for any reason. So it could be illness, disability, frailty, mental health problem, or an addiction. But that person relies on them for help and support. The care they have to give is unpaid, and we split our carers into adult carers over the age of 25, and then we have our young children and young people carers under the age of 18, and our young adult carers who are between 16 and 25. And there's a slight overlap with the young carers group, because what we found is that young carers at certain points in their lives need more support. So at times like GCSE levels, A levels, going into the workplace or going away to university or college are usually trigger points for young people. So we overlap the age group slightly to make sure that they don't fall through any gaps and are supported well. In terms of statistics, about 50% of our carers care for a physical disability, about 20% for a sensory disability, 20%, about 13% for mental health problems, and about 10% for dementia. The other 7% are usually a mixture, or they've not stated who they care for. So just some carers facts. How many of us will have a caring role in our lifetime? We think it's about 3 in 5. We know that 58% of carers are women and 42% are men. Average time it takes for a carer to identify themselves is 2 years. And this is probably the biggest barrier we have in supporting carers, in as much as it takes carers a very long time to realise that they are carers. They recognise themselves as husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, or friends or neighbours, but they very often don't realise that they have a caring role. We know that about 70% of our carers come into contact with healthcare professionals in a year. But we pick up on average only 1 in 10 of our carers. And this can be because we're not asking the right questions, but it also can be because the carer just doesn't recognise themselves as a carer. So how many adult carers are there in the UK? These figures are all taken from the 2011 census, and as you know, there's a new one this year, but these are the most national up-to-date figures we have. And we think there are about 7 million carers, adult carers in the UK. That figure is very, very likely to have gone up since the last census. But until the results come out, we won't know. What we do know is through the COVID pandemic, that figure's gone up to 13.6 million carers. Lots of our carers have stopped privately funded or paid care coming into the home because of fear of infection. And so there are people out there who perhaps cared only very little, who've taken up more caring hours since COVID. So that's an increase to 13.6 million people. So if we looked in an average GP surgery, about 10 of the care, about for every 100 carers that come in, about 10 of them will be carers. 3 to 4 will be caring for more than 20 hours a week, and about 2 will be caring for more than 50 hours a week. And that's really significant because what we know is the more hours of caring there are per week, the more chance of that having a negative impact on our carers. So, for example, a 60-year-old man who's caring for his spouse for more than 50 hours a week will have a 23% increase in his chance of having a stroke compared to a 60-year-old man who is not caring for more than 50 hours a week. And we know that out there are about 1.4 million carers who are caring for more than 50 hours a week, some of whom are children under the age of 18. So when we look at the impact on adult carers, 83% of our carers tell us that they have poorer physical and mental health. So mental health problems are usually to do with stress and worry. They can also have a lot of guilt. Are they doing the job properly? What would happen if they were to become ill? Could somebody be doing the job better than them? They feel guilty if they are tired and depressed. They feel that they're not giving the best care. Physically, we know that back and neck problems come out as top of the list of things that carers tell us have an impact on them. And we also know that if our carers have an underlying health care problem, such as diabetes, we know that that comes secondary to looking after their loved ones. And so they're very likely to miss hospital appointments, miss regular medication, might not even pick up their medication regularly from the pharmacies. But 1 in 5 carers give up work to care. And that's about 600 carers a week who are giving up work to care. We know that there are over 2 million carers who combine work and a caring role as well. About 49% of our carers are struggling financially. And that's big bills. That's things like gas, electricity, mortgage, not a new car or a holiday, if anyone can remember what holiday is. Carers allowance for carers is £67.25 per week, and that's for a minimum of 35 hours caring. That's the lowest financial benefit of its kind. We know that social isolation is common for our carers, particularly if it's a couple. If a couple are used to socialising together and one of them becomes ill and the other one becomes the carer, they're much more likely to drop out of their social circles. And of course, COVID-19 has made all of the above worse. As I say, we know that our carers have gone up to about 13 million during COVID. And what they've told us is that the social isolation and the fear of infection is the overriding thought for them. So it all sounds a bit doom and gloom, but there is some help out there. So what we can offer at Caring Together, the first point of call is our helpline. That's the number you'll see on any posters or any leaflets. It's just one number and it gets you straight through to our helpline team. What we know is that carers ring us at different points in their caring journey. Some carers will ring us before they start caring, some during caring, and some really right at the end or even after they've been bereaved. So we know that everyone's different in the point that they request help, and everyone is different in what they request from us as well. So what the helpline will do is form a really bespoke plan of care for each carer, knowing that each person is an individual. Some of the things that we can offer are things like the listening ear, and that's a service that really has taken off since COVID started, where carers can ring up and they can speak to somebody who is or was a carer, and they can talk about whatever they want. So they can just have a social interaction, they can ring up and ask for advice, they can ring up and have a moan, they can ring up and perhaps practice difficult conversations that they're going to have with relatives. And we found that that service is so popular, we've just increased our listening ear volunteers by 10 to cope with the demand. And sometimes carers tell us that the only person outside of the immediate household they talk to in a week is our listening ear service. We normally have hubs and peer support groups, and they're dotted about the county. These have obviously been on hold and have gone over to Zoom meetings, but we're just starting tentatively to open these up again. And these form a dual purpose, really. Half of the purpose of the groups are social event. So the carers come along, they can bring their loved ones or they can come alone, and we provide refreshments, afternoon teas, light lunches. We have entertainment, so we'll invite comedians, piano players, singers, local schools when it's the nativity season, and just have a really informal get together and social event where the carers can relax. If they bring their loved ones with them, we have staff who can help look after their loved ones to give them a bit of a break. And it's a couple of hours of just being relaxed and in the company of like-minded people. The flip side of that is that we also offer one-to-one support for carers at the groups. So we can offer help and advice there. We also invite people to come in and talk about things which are relevant for carers. So things like living wills, somebody from the benefits office who might be able to advise them on benefits. And we also make sure that people are equipped with what they need. So it's a dual purpose support group. We also offer advice on carers assessments. Carers assessments used to be done by Caring Together. That's now gone back over to the County Council. But a lot of our staff went over during that handover. So we have really good contacts with the carers assessments team. And we can talk carers through carers assessment. Since 2014, every carer has been entitled to have an assessment. But a lot of carers are quite wary. They think that it's going to be a judgment on how well they care, and it's not. It's really looking at what would help them in their caring role. We also offer a counselling service. So this is a counselling service for people who are caring or who have been bereaved from caring. What we find is that people who've spent a lot of their life caring, once they're bereaved and don't have that role anymore, can become really quite depressed and lost. They have a loss of identity, loss of purpose. And so we have a counselling service with our fully qualified counsellor. All of these can be accessed through the helpline. We also run something called the Family Carers Prescription, which is a way for GPs to refer into us. And it's a really nice way to get referrals because it includes the GP in a circle of care. And very often carers haven't identified themselves to GPs, or their cared for person is at another GP surgery. So they're not seen as a carer at all. But the GP can refer us into us for the Family Carers Prescription, which is a form which is emailed to us. And it's a really nice way of catching carers who are at real crisis point. So they very often go to their GP as a last resort and say they can't cope and they're in great difficulties. and the GP can either ring that through or email that to us, and we pick those people up really quickly. We also have a magazine that comes out quarterly, and that's a really useful tool. It has information not just about caring together, but about lots of different agencies, lots of different charities and services. It comes out quarterly, and in the middle is a really useful pull out of all of the groups in the area. So again, not just caring together, but other groups such as Age UK, the dementia cafes, and they have names, telephone numbers and addresses so that people can choose which ones they want to go to. As I said, we have a really strong voice component, both in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough and in Norfolk. And we have voice forums where we get together with carers and they really tell us what they think of our services. We also have one for young carers, and they are really good at telling us what they like and what they don't like. So that's something that's really important. We also have home care. So we have a split service again. We have respite cares. So carers can come to us who are in need of a break. And again, that varies from carer to carer. It could be that they want a couple of hours a week. It could be they want a day off, or it could be they want a short break or a holiday away. And we can provide respite care, which is free of charge. The other flip side of that is that we also provide paid for care. So very much like any other nursing agency, we provide 1 hour minimum care calls, and we can offer a mixture of respite care and paid for care if that's what the carer wants. And then lastly, we've just appointed a parent carer lead who is dealing specifically with carers who are parents looking after children, because we know that there's lots of different issues that come up for parent carers as well. So the other thing that we offer is our carers card, which is the purple card at the front of the diagram. And any carer can have that. And we found it particularly useful during COVID for going into supermarkets with their loved ones. Some of the supermarkets are saying single shoppers only. And also they can quote the number on the card for preferential delivery times. And so that's proven really useful. And we encourage every carer really to have one. They're free of charge, and we'll send them out in the post to you. On the back of that, the yellow diagram that you can see, that's our what if card. And what we're trying to do is to get carers to think, what if I couldn't care? Who would take over from me? So what if I had an accident? What if I was ill? What if I was in the car and it broke down and I couldn't get back home? Who would take over care while I was unable to? Carers contact us. We put their details onto our system. We put their next of kin details on our system, and we put the requirements of their loved one on our system. If then for any reason they can't care, they can activate the what if card by ringing the number that's on it. And that's a number that's available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And then we will send out one of our qualified healthcare workers to look after their loved one for up to 72 hours. And that just gives everyone a little bit of breathing space to get more long-term care sorted out if necessary. And that's completely free. So some of the reasons you might activate the what if card: if the carer went into hospital, it means that we can get carers out usually within the hour to their loved ones at home. And then we have 72 hours to assess whether the person is staying in hospital or is coming out. Carers can activate it if they really get to crisis point where they feel they can't cope anymore. Also, if carers injure themselves, we had a lady a few months ago who popped out to the shops for bread and milk, left her husband who had Alzheimer's. He was fine for about 20 minutes, half an hour. She slipped and fell and she broke her leg. We got somebody out to her husband to look after him while she went into hospital, had the leg set. she was kept in overnight and then she came out the next day. Sudden illnesses, we can activate the what if card for, but not COVID. If there's COVID in the house, we can't go in, simply because we don't want to spread infection from house to house. If a carer has had lots of time off work and they've been given a warning that if they take more time off, they would be dismissed, they can activate the what if card for that. And as I said, if the car breaks down, or if you're on a train that's delayed, you can activate the what if card then. So looking at young carers, how many young carers are there in the UK? About 700,000. And again, these figures are likely to have gone up in the last census. Average age of a young carer is 12. That's the age we most commonly pick up our young carers. And we think that's quite a significant age because that's the age that young carers go from primary school up to secondary school. So what we know is that in secondary school, they're much more likely to be monitored closely. So things like absenteeism is monitored more closely, lateness, have they got the right equipment on the right day, is homework being done? And for our young carers, particularly the ones who are working many hours as a carer, that's the time when things are really noticed to be slipping. So lots of people don't think of young carers as being as young as 5 to 11. But we do have a significant number of 5-year-olds who are caring. When you get to 12 and you start to be a little bit more mature, the whole way of looking at young carers becomes different. And so people tend to pick up on young carers as they mature. So the impacts on young carers are really quite astonishing. Young carers are 1.5 times more likely to have a long-term illness than their peers. And that could be a physical or a mental health illness. And just like the adults, our young carers report lots of guilt, lots of depression, lots of anxiety. And they also come to us with back and neck problems as well. They may not be lifting correctly, they may not have the correct lifting equipment in the homes. And again, if they have an underlying long-term illness themselves, they're much more likely to have neglected it. They're twice as likely not to be in full-time education as their peers. And when they get to GCSE level, they're on average about 9 grades below their peers. So it's really important that we support young carers because these are things that will carry through for the rest of their lives. It can affect whether they can do A-levels, can affect what university or college they're able to go to, and it can affect what kind of work they're eligible for as well. The average family income is lower again for our young carers, and that can be really significant in their social isolation because they don't have the disposable income to go out with friends. So if a group of friends are going to the cinema, ice skating, bowling, they may not have that disposable income to go with them. And also, they don't have the latest trendy gear. So the latest trainers, the hoodies, the sweatshirts, all of the things that are really important to children of that age. And about 36% of our children say that they're bullied as a direct result of being a carer, or they're seen as aloof and not joining in. So that's again because of their caring role. About 1 in 12 of our carers care for more than 15 hours a week, and quite a significant portion of that are carers who care for more than 50 hours a week. So that's on top of their schoolwork and their homework. What we found in COVID-19 is that our young carers, when they've been off school, have taken on much more of a caring role. So they're picking up tasks that they perhaps wouldn't have done previously, but because they're in the home and they're not going out to school, they've taken those tasks on. And what we know is that once young carers start to do a task, they very rarely drop them when things get back to normal. So it's likely that more and more of our young carers are going to increase the hours of caring that they give. So our young carer services have changed quite recently. Most of the one-to-one support now is given by Centre 33, who are another charity which help young carers. But the ways that we can still help our carers, our young carers, are by trips and activities. So over COVID, we've been holding lots of Zoom meetings. All of the young people are really much better at Zoom than us adults. So they've really taken to that. So we've done things like cookery sessions. So we've delivered boxes of ingredients to our young carers and then had a Zoom session where we're all cooking together. We've done arts and crafts. We've delivered arts and crafts materials to them. And we've done things like arts and crafts over Zoom. We also offer trips, and they're just starting again. We've got some trips and activities planned for this half term coming. So we do short trips, so that will be ice skating, bowling, cinema. We do day trips as well, which are things like Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, and we do longer trips. So we do residential trips at places like Grafham Water or the Meeple Centre, or camping or music festivals. All of these trips and activities for our young people are completely free, because we think it's really important that they're able to come away from the caring environment and actually just be kids and just relax and enjoy themselves. And we try and make sure that all of our young carers are offered trips and activities regularly. They're not obliged to come, but most of them really enjoy them. As I said, we've got a really strong voice for our young carers who tell us exactly what they like and don't like. And we also have quite a healthy bursary fund. And we always ring fence this money to make sure that our young carers have this bursary. They change from time to time, so it's always worth ringing and seeing what bursaries are available. But an example is that back a few months ago, we did a back to education bursary. So we were able to give up to £300 per young carer to aid the young carers getting back into studying. So we had lots of requests for laptops and tablets. We paid for internet for some people who had tablets but hadn't got internet at home. And for a few of our young carers, we provided bicycles because our young carers were telling us that to get on a school bus was really worrying for them because they thought they might pick up infections and then take them back home. So we bought bicycles so that they could cycle back and forth to school. So if you have a young carer who's in financial difficulty, it's always worth a phone call to our helpline because, as I say, the bursaries change over time. So when we look at the benefits to the NHS from supporting carers, what we know is that if we look after our carers, it's much more likely that they're not going to reach crisis point. If they reach crisis point or breakdown and have to have a break from their caring role, it's very likely that their loved ones will end up either in residential care or they'll end up in hospital. We also know that if their loved ones are in a hospital and they're not supported by the carers when they come out, they're much more likely to bounce back into hospital and be readmitted very early on. So it's really important that we support our carers in that. And also the What If plan has proven really beneficial to the NHS because that's 72 hours of free care. So it means that the hospitals aren't inundated with requests for district nurse teams or re-enablement teams to go out to them. So just a few facts on the economics. How much do carers save the economy per year? It's about £132 billion. So if every carer stopped caring today, about £132 billion would have to be found from somewhere in order to replace the care that they give. And to put that in some kind of perspective, the NHS budget for 2018 to 19 was 129 billion. So you would be looking at doubling the NHS and a bit in order to replace carers. And then lastly, I'll just very briefly talk about our Carer Friendly Tick Award. What carers have told us is that sometimes they could be quite hesitant about declaring themselves as carers. They really don't know what response they might get from an organisation. So we've come up with a carer-friendly tick, which is an accreditation which shows you as an organisation to be carer-friendly. And we've split it into 4 groups. So education, we go out to schools, we go out to colleges, and we inform the teachers about spotting carers, about how to talk to them, about how to refer to us. We do the same with employers. Most employers tell us that the carers that they have are really valued workers. They've perhaps been very highly trained. They don't want to lose them because they have a caring role. And so we can talk to employers about things like flexible working, unpaid leave, or even better paid leave for the caring role. And some employers will offer carers up to 5 days of extra annual leave per year so that they have some more choices about their caring role. The health one is obviously hospitals and GPs. And we talk to people about identifying carers. And then the last one is community. So that's other charities, any community services. So things like the RAF Benevolent Fund, Age UK, Dementia UK. And you are given a nice shiny certificate if you pass the carer-friendly tick, and also a logo that you can put on your letters that tells carers that you are carer aware and carer friendly. And it's a really easy thing to get. You just have to have a named member of your organisation as a carer lead or a carer champion. You have an agreement, which is how do you identify carers? How are they treated as they go through your organisation? What is the referral process? That you cover issues about carers in staff training. So you've got a tick for that already. That you display information or you have leaflets and posters available to send out to people if they want. And also that you're aware of things like Carers Week and Young Carers Awareness Days. And we would provide you with that information and any leaflets or any promotions about what we're doing for that. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we have a website, which is really informative. And of course, the number which gets you straight through to our helpline. So just finally, what I would say, if you take anything from this session today, is to think carer. If you see somebody who has a long-term health condition, think about who's helping them at home. And it's often very often not enough just to ask someone, are they a carer? Because they may not realise that they are. It might be a whole conversation. We're always looking for volunteers if anyone wants to volunteer. We're also looking for people to fundraise. So if you fancy jumping out of an aeroplane or sitting in a bath of baked beans, we're the people to come to. And also to remember that we offer paid for care, because any profit we make from our paid for care service is put back into the charity to help unpaid carers. So I'll stop sharing now. And that is it from me. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful presentation, Karen, and thank you so much. I think if anybody have any question, you can come forward and ask question, whatever you want to ask. And I want to remind you all that unfortunately we won't be able to have our second speaker due to the poor internet connection. So he won't be able to join us today. I'm very sorry about that, but I can see we've got a lot of people that who are very keen to discuss about this topic. We've got Francis, we've got also Jonathan. Well, all of them, I can see your message. If we have time, I can give you the floor to explain a little bit. We also got Linda as well. Linda, there's a lady also, she got some how to call it, slides to discuss about it. So yeah, I think all of you, you will be given you'll be given the floor, to explain a little bit. We got Dave as well. I'm sure Dave, good to see you back. Yeah, I'm sure if you have something anyway to say, also, you'll be given the floor as well. Linda, I've got a question first. Despite the carers, the difficulties and challenges that they face, yet still they have not been paid well. why and how that can be improved, please, if you could, discuss about that. Thank you.
Osman, you're probably asking Karen here.
Yeah, Karen. Yeah, I'll say Karen. Yeah, sorry if I say Linda. Sorry, Karen.
Sorry.
I'm very sorry about that. I do apologize. Sorry, that was my mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, unpaid carers have really had the thin end of the wedge when it comes to being recognised. And I think because so many of our carers really feel they don't have a voice, they don't have a way of expressing, just how much of a struggle it is for them. They do miss out on a lot of benefits. Things are getting better, I think. There are more benefits available to our carers now. And there are more benefits that are available to the cared for. So, for example, PIP payments, which then, carers can, they can choose, the cared for can choose how they spend that money as well. So they can have paid for care, which helps the unpaid carers. But this is one of the things that we campaign on quite strongly, that, the £67.25 for a minimum of 35 hours of caring per week is just really atrocious. It's the lowest paid benefit of its kind. And we have taken our petitions, and our voice representatives have gone up to Parliament to actually petition for better pay for unpaid carers. But it's a long road, really, and I think the whole sort of ethos of looking at young and adult carers has to change, because they do such a vast amount of work. We have young children who are giving medication, who are assisting with peg feeding, who are really doing the jobs of adults, and they don't get any financial help at all. So that's something that we really campaign hard for.
Right. Well, thank you very much for that, Karen. Is there any question for Karen, please? Particularly parents, carers. No questions? Looks like your presentation was so wonderful.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very, very much for having you today. Thank you very much. It was absolutely fantastic, to have you on board. Yeah. All right. I got a message from before Linda. I will give you the flow after. Let me read this Jonathan message. Jonathan said, "Hello, I'm here from Rethink Care Support. The telephone number 07783267013. We are carers supporting other carers of adults with mental health condition. We cover Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Would be happy to hear from people." That's wonderful, Jonathan. I'm sure after Linda, I will give you the floor. If you will have something to say, yeah, you'll be more than welcome. Is that all right?
Yes, thank you, Usman. I'll just say a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a good chance to publicise everything that's being developed to support carers. So Family Voice, as everyone will know, focuses on parents of children and young people who have special needs of one kind or another. We've heard a lot about Caring Together, which does such fantastic work. There are one or two other things that it's worth people at least knowing about. So what I do is part of Rethink, which is quite a well-known national mental health charity. In Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, we have something called Rethink Carer Support. So this is not about children, it's about maybe your wife or husband or son or daughter or mum or dad, any adult who has mental health conditions, and you're their carer. you may be under massive stress and have all sorts of, you may feel very much alone in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I've just put our phone number in the chat. We do have more information, obviously, about what we do. And we are there to support families and friends of adults with mental health conditions. We all know mental health issues are widespread. COVID has made that quite a lot worse than it was before. We want to be much better at reaching out across Peterborough and to minority ethnic groups. We don't think, well, we're not doing that very well. If you look at me, I'm white and male and middle-aged, and I live near Cambridge. So we very much recognise we've got much more to do to reach out to those thousands of people who need more support. So that's who we are, Rethink Carer Support. Thanks very much for that free publicity. Thank you.
That's definitely wonderful, Jonathan, and thank you very much for the good job you guys doing. We really appreciate it, honestly. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Very kind of you.
Could I just ask, Jonathan, do you have an email address? We have an inclusion officer who has recently started with us, who's doing some work at looking at hard to reach communities. So we've been looking in particular at Peterborough and the ethnic minority groups there, and also the traveller community, who traditionally don't have a lot of support and don't come forward as carers. I just wondered if there was an email address I could perhaps pass on to her.
Yes, I'll stick that in the chat, Karen.
Perfect, thank you.
Just to quickly mention, I'm also a director of Health Watch across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, who are doing work with the Roma Gypsy traveller community.
Yeah.
So you might want to link in with them.
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect.
I heard your name earlier this morning very positively from CPFT colleagues. So it's nice to actually meet you, Karen.
Thank you. I paid them well.
And she did a wonderful presentation as well, you know. So
thank you.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Thank you very, very much, both of you. Yeah, Linda, over to you, please, if you can have the floor now, please. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you, Osman, and thanks everybody for having me today. So I'm just going to share my screen and share some slides with you. Okay, so yes, I'm very much trying to get out to as many networks and forums as possible to introduce the work of Future Parks and the work that we're doing. So I work for Future Bright Solutions, and we're working with the Future Parks team to support their community engagement and stakeholder engagement. And Future Parks is a collaboration across the county. So it's hosted by the County Council, and the County Council are working in partnership with all the district and city councils, and also the local nature partnership. So that brings an element of biodiversity and nature into the work of parks and open spaces. Lots of different areas of focus, especially focusing on responding to COVID. So it's lottery funded, and when the lottery funding came in, it came in right at the start of last year, before COVID had even been a thing. And then of course the pandemic hit us and everything got put on hold. So it's been refocused a little bit so that we can use our parks and open spaces to very much respond to COVID and the pandemic. Then it's also looking at how we use our parks and open spaces to improve health and well-being, tackling climate change and restoring nature. The focus is not just on existing spaces, but it's also looking at future spaces as well, and making sure that they're of good quality and support health and well-being. There's work going on looking at different funding models. So some of you might be aware, some of you might not, that parks and green spaces, all of the budgets that the local authorities have to look after those are not ring fenced. So quite often they get cut. So, you know, there may be money for cutting grass and cutting trees, but doing lots of, you know, development and making them accessible and, you know, friendly to people and nature often gets cut. So there's a piece of work going on now looking at how we can manage them more effectively. We're working with different communities, so we're looking at things like volunteering, health and wellbeing, to see what we can do in terms of building up community groups to look after parks and open spaces. And then there's also a piece of work looking at because Cambridgeshire is one of the biggest development areas in the country at the moment, lots of houses being built. So there's also a piece of work within Future Parks looking at making sure that any buildings that are built have good quality green spaces with them. So as I said, it's funded by the National Lottery, also by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government and the National Trust. And this project is one of only 8 across the UK. They're all quite different. They've got lots of different focus. And the one in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough is specifically interested in how we all collaborate together. So very much looking at how we develop different partnerships, not just within parks and open spaces, but with the health and wellbeing sector, with the community sector, you know, all working together. We're currently in the sort of phase 1, which is the discovery and co-design, we're calling it. And that's where we're getting out and talking to as many people as possible and listening. And that work goes up until July, or the end of July. And then we will be, as Future Bright, will be developing a series of recommendations that we give to the Future Parks team to take forward into the transition phase. So that will go on from August this year until March next year. And what they'll be doing is building a business case. They'll be testing different ways of working and things like that, and building a business case to take back to the partners to say, you know, this is how we could do it. And we'd like, you know, this is the business case to persuade you, if you like, to adopt this new way of working and these new ways of doing things. So we've got the vision, the vision is to make sure that parks are sustainable and accessible to everybody for the future, so that everybody can use them to be happy, to be healthy for generations to come. The mission is looking at transforming the way things are done. So as I said, looking at that collaboration. And then we've got 5 work streams. So we're in the middle, we're that stakeholder engagement work stream, if you see the sort of the round circles at the bottom. But then there's also a work stream looking at the funding and operating models, so different ways that we could do things. There's one looking at growth and development, which is very much looking at all of those houses that are being built. There's a piece of work looking at mapping all of the green spaces and making sure that they are of good quality. And then there's another piece of work that's looking at all the work we're doing to measure the impact, so that we can feed back then to the funders to say, hopefully say, we're doing a good job. So within our stakeholder and community engagement work stream, there are 5 different elements. And the first one is health and wellbeing. And that's very much looking at how people who work in health and wellbeing and communities that are supporting health and wellbeing can better use their local parks and open spaces. So we've had a workshop recently where we brought a lot of people together to say, you know, here's the opportunity, here's the park, here's the green space, here's the social prescriber, here's the mental health team or whatever. You know, how do we join you both up so that you can work collaboratively together? The next one is we're looking at new communities. So we're looking at a number of new communities that have just been built and asking residents, you know, are they happy with their green space? Was it what they expected? You know, how would they like their green space to develop, and how would they like to help to manage their green space? Then the next piece of work is looking at volunteering. We've been doing a big piece of work around working with volunteering groups, asking them, you know, what sort of support they need to build capacity. And very much the feedback that we've got is that people would like to be able to network more. So we're identifying all the different networks and forums that exist across the county and sharing that with people, but also developing an overarching piece that we can link all of the different offers and the different groups and the different health and wellbeing teams and all of that all together. So that's a big piece of work that we're doing. And then the bottom 2, number 4 and 5, they're very much feeding into the others. So it's looking at how we collaborate, whether it's like a big piece of collaboration across the county, or whether it's maybe a local piece in Peterborough or in Cambridge City or whatever that looks like. And the vision and mission will support that. So we're speaking to lots of people across the county. We've been doing this work since February. We've had lots of one-to-one meetings, dropping into networks and forums like this. We've had some workshops as well. We're speaking to all of the people in that list and more. So we're really trying to get out and sort of spread the word about Future Parks, I suppose, and sort of once we've introduced it, then sort of identify the opportunities for you all to get involved. And then once we've finished our sort of listening phase, which is now, so during July, we'll be gathering all that information together to produce some recommendations. We're getting lots of, so when I'm speaking at forums like this, I get lots of other contacts. So it's like, oh, you must speak to them, or happy to speak to any of you individually if you'd like to have a chat, following up on all those actions. We've had one volunteer network meeting recently, and we'll be having another one, a health and wellbeing network meeting in June. And as I said, we then developed the recommendations for the transition phase. So it's very much about keeping in touch with you all. I've got, so we've just finished developing the web page for Future Parks, and there's also a Twitter account as well. So I can share those with you, Osman and Judita, to share with the group afterwards. And then, you know, it's about feeding, you know, any opportunities. So if there aren't workshops, if there are opportunities out on the ground that you might want to get involved with or can share with all of your members, it's about sharing all those opportunities and offers as well. So that's really a quick whistle-stop tour through Future Parks to introduce the word to you. My contact details are there, the info at, and then the Future Parks contact details are there as well. I've also got a phone number that I can share if people would prefer to talk on the phone rather than email. Yeah, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Happy to take any questions. I can share the slides afterwards, and as I said, I'll share all the web page and everything as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Linda. Very useful information. Anyway, is there any possibility that you can share some of your contacts to the chat area, so that people can, you know, have your contacts in case if they want to get in touch with you, please? Thank you. Wonderful.
Yes, I can put that in the contact into the chat now.
It was nice to have you on board. Honestly, I hope you'll, you know, have you in our next meeting in next month. Yeah, also as well. If anybody has a question for Linda, Agnieszka, I saw your question. I'm sure that question is meant for Karen, so I'll read it out for Karen. Then Karen will answer that one. If anybody has a question for Linda, please, you can just, you know, ask your question now, please, before we can move to another passage. Thank you.
Hello, Osman, it's Tanya.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, for Linda, I just want to know if the National Trust, if she knows if the National Trust offer any discount for carers or families if they wanted to access the parks and things.
Yeah, go on, Linda.
Yes. Thanks for that, Tanya. I'm not aware off the top of my head, but I'll take that away and I will ask the question. I've got a contact in the National Trust, so I'll ask the question after this meeting and then I'll feed back into you.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tanya. Is anyone wants to ask a question for Linda? Yeah. Thank you very much, Linda. Yeah, I hope nobody wants to ask anyway. So at the moment, I think everything is clear for them. Yeah, like I said, Linda, is there any possibility that you can share your information to the chat area, please, so that people will be able to, you know, have your contacts there, please? Thank you. What's this? Agnieszka, where's your question again? Too many questions there. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to. Yes, Agnieszka, I think this question is for Karen. Agnieszka said, I know Tanya tried to answer some of them anyway. Oh, God, it's gone again. Sorry, guys. Yeah, she said that I'm aware that there are some discounts or offers from for carers. The like care-free tickets on local attraction like swimming pool, cinemas, etc. Unfortunately, I didn't see any database for that. It is not advertised openly. Karen, I'm not sure anybody Karen, I don't know whether you can, you know, reply to that one. I'm sure I know Tanya, you know, answer some of it, but if you wanna give some, you know, details for that, that will be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we don't hold a database as such for venues who offer discount for carers. The carers card very much came about at the beginning of COVID, and because with so many places closing down, we've not able to being able to reach out to them to, try and persuade them that carers should have discounts. What I would say is if you have a carer's card or you are a carer, it's always worth asking, because very often, even if they don't have a policy in place, they will offer you some discount. But that's one of the things that we're hoping now to really pick up and run with, is to get organisations to give discounts when you've got a carer's card. And I know that in the disability forum that I attended earlier in the week, there was some discussion about being able to access toilets in different venues without being a customer if you had a carer's card. So we're hoping really to, now that everywhere's opening up again, to really expand that and try and get people to recognise the carer's card and give discounts, or offer facilities that perhaps they wouldn't just to the general public.
Oh, thank you very much. I can see, although there's another question from Tanya. She said, where do we apply for carers card, please?
Ring our helpline. Ring our helpline or go onto our website. Either way, probably quicker and easier to ring the helpline. Everyone's really helpful there, and they'll be able to get the details and send you out a card. I think it's taken about 2 weeks at the moment because of volume of people who are applying, but about 2 weeks, and they'll send you the card in the post. And we're hoping now that things are opening up again, that we can perhaps go out to places like supermarkets and GPs and actually have carers cards with us that we can sign people up, and also offer the what if card if that's appropriate as well. So look out locally, because we are making steps towards actually going back out into the world and seeing people face to face.
All right, thank you very, very much for that, Karen. I don't know, Agnieszka, I don't know whether you are asking another question. She said National Trust Access Card give up to 2 carers goes free on this card. Done by £10 per year for junior membership. I don't know whether you want to ask a question on that or you just trying to explain to someone else. Agnieszka. I don't know whether Karen, if you have something to say on that one as well. Otherwise, yeah.
No, I don't think I do.
Yes, you came back and said, my goodness. Sorry, guys. What is the question again? She said, what about council-run venues? They don't openly advertise discount like swimming pool. The same person, Agnieszka, is still asking a question. Karen, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have a policy in place, but you have to ask, which is not something that's ideal really for anybody. But as I say, we are, now that we're getting back into the world and things are opening up again, we are trying to promote the carers card as having discounts associated with it as well. So that's sort of part of the work that we're taking forward at the moment. So watch this space. Hopefully, we can advertise perhaps on our website and on our Facebook pages that certain places are offering discounts now. But as I said, it's always worth asking, because very often, even if they don't have a policy, you might get a few pounds off just by saying that you've got a carer's card.
Look at her, she said that is why the database would be very useful.
Yes, definitely. And that's something that, I'll feed back to our helpline team. I mean, they probably have an unofficial list of places, but they perhaps, could be, put that into a more formal database that could be shared, definitely.
Yeah, Bofa and Tanya, they agree with the database.
Yeah, it'd be really useful.
I know that. Yeah, thank you very much, Karen. I'm sure you answered all the questions anyway, and everything was loud at Kalaya anyway, honestly. Yeah, I will open the floor for everyone. Anybody, Dave, if you have anything to say, and Snow, Karen, Albert, all of you, anybody have something to say, please. The floor is yours
Yeah.
before I. Uh, uh,
Yes, Usman, I've prepared a sort of update because
yeah,
thank you very much for inviting me to these meetings. I find them ever so helpful, and it allows me to be able to reach a wider audience in my role as partnership advisor. But what I do, I've put together some briefing notes, which I'll send through later on so that they can be distributed. But it's just really the sort of latest developments and things that have happened that are quite important within DWP. So I just wanted to just give the headlines really, and then people can look at the briefing notes afterwards when they're circulated. But just a few things just to make people aware of. We've heard a lot about the carers allowance, and DWP are currently running an initiative whereby we're trying to spread the word and make sure people are aware of what's available, although we fully appreciate, I certainly appreciate over the years that the amount is not that significant, and we'd like it to be much higher, but that of course has to be a ministerial decision. So I'm pleased that some lobbying is going on in the hope that that can be changed. But such as it is with carers allowance, we're now trying to support partner organisations as well to signpost people. And so I've got some information on that, and there's a link to our gov.uk website, just to make sure people are aware that carers allowance is there, because we come across quite a lot of people that don't know anything about it. And we want to make sure that we don't deter people from making a claim, because it is fairly straightforward. These days you've got telephone numbers, you can do it online and so on, so various different ways. So that's that. We've heard information too about personal independence payment and so on, and some DWP benefits, I'm sure some people will be aware. As part of the claim process, you have to attend a work capability assessment or a medical assessment. And during COVID, they were largely, the face-to-face assessments were suspended. Pleased to say that they've now, from the 17th of May, actually, in England, Scotland and Wales, they are starting to resume. So people now will be able to have a face-to-face assessment, where before they couldn't and they had to wait. So that's good news as well on that. So those sort of things mean that they're still going to be doing reviews and assessments by telephone if they possibly can, to get to the bottom of the list. But there will be, as I say, face-to-face assessments available now, so that's good news. Lots of things from COVID, because there were lots of restrictions and easements and so on that were brought in as a direct result of COVID. And I'm pleased to say that support for people that are renting accommodation is going to carry on until at least October. So there will now be longer notice periods and so on. And so people now won't be faced with eviction and so on if they're struggling with their rent, because those easements are going to stay in place until at least October. So that's good news. And there is a link in my briefing notes to gov.uk where you can get some extra information about that. And that's largely, as I say, as a result of the vaccine program and so on, and efforts to suppress the virus, where we're gradually coming out of it. But I'm pleased to say that particular easement is to stay for the time being. And they're very important. Some people may be aware of this, but some people still receive, excuse me, their benefits through the post office card account, or POCA as we call it. It's a special bank account that you can only get from the post office for automated benefit payments and so on. I don't know if people are aware, but that's actually going from November of this year. They're doing away with it. So currently, DWP are writing to all our customers who are currently receiving their money by post office card account, and going through what the options are and so on. There are free phone numbers you can ring for advice and all the rest of it. So if you get clients that receive a notification on that, a bit concerned about it, then, as I say, I've included these free phone numbers there so they can ring up our customer service centre and get some advice as to what to do to change over, because from November of this year, that post office card account scheme will end. And then finally, I've just got, because we've heard a lot about vulnerable people and carers and so on, and I don't know if you're aware that DWP, it's been in for a fairly long while now, but we have a safeguarding scheme for our vulnerable customers. We've recently created a central team by appointing 31 senior safeguard leads across the whole country. And the senior safeguarding lead for East Anglia is my colleague Lisa Barraclough, and she covers East Anglia, so it's Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, Rutland, Leicester, Northamptonshire, Staffordshire, Derbyshire, so a huge part of the country there. But it's, as a senior safeguarding lead, she's integral in DWP to reach across communities and so on. And it's really making sure that we're able to provide the help and support for vulnerable people. And I've listed Lisa's role in the briefing notes and so on, so people can read that and get much more information. Because we recognise within DWP that we have that positive impact of joined up approach to safeguarding people and so on, and our vulnerable customers. And so, as I say, I put some information there just to give people the background to it and what we actually do and how it actually works. Because we pick up information from all sorts of sources. And for those of you that are familiar with Universal Credit, you'll probably know that it's an online system where people interact with us via an online journal. And we have computer systems there that look at the journal entries to pick up certain sort of key words to make sure that if there are risks that are coming out of that chat, and then we recognise them and we're able to then help and support our vulnerable people and give them all the side of help and support they need. I've included in my briefing notes the email addresses for both Lisa and her deputy. And so, as I say, if people have any questions about that now, I'd be pleased to try and answer them. Or if anything comes out of it once they receive the briefing notes via your forum, then obviously you can forward them to me via my email address, which I'll put in the chat now. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to deal with them.
Wonderful job, Dave. I think Ramu got a question for you. Ramu, over to you.
What I wanted to ask about is the carers allowance. Because I have been on a situation whereby when I was claiming carers allowance, I was so put off, I just gave up in the end, because what happened was you are on it claiming, all of a sudden they stop it, you get no letters, you get nothing to say why it has been stopped. You're just left in limbo, and when you ring them up, somebody will be like to you, oh, we need an update on your earnings. And I would think it would make much sense if you let people know in advance if you're going to stop their carers allowance, give them a reason why a suspension has been done, rather than just stopping it without letting anybody know. Yeah. Other issue I was going to ask about is with carers allowance in relation to universal credit. When mine was stopped, carers allowance never told universal credit, I don't get carers allowance anymore. Universal Credit was docking me £292 a month, 5 months in a row, which I had tantrums to be able to try and sort out because they had no information why I was being docked, a benefit I was not getting from carers allowance. It took me 8 weeks to get that sorted. And I think that is very unfair on carers, that we're trying to sort our families out and Universal Credit and carers allowance are not communicating at all. I lost over £1,000 within that 5-month period. I was not getting nothing from carers allowance because they were saying they were waiting on pay slips, which they never informed me about in the first place. They just suspended my claim for no apparent reason. In the end, I just gave up. I just wrote them a letter and said, I do not want to receive any more carers allowance because Universal Credit is docking me money I'm not receiving because they are saying my claim is still active because it's on suspension. They cannot do anything about it, which I think a lot of people are suffering from.
Well, I'm sorry you've had that experience. I mean, that certainly isn't how it's supposed to work. But yeah, there are some cases from time to time that don't work in quite the way we would like. I mean, if those sorts of things happen, it can be very frustrating. I understand that. I mean, pleased to say it sounds like you've got it sorted out at last. But I mean, the only thing I can say is if you do come across those sorts of issues where you can't sort them out easily, or you'd like some extra help and support to sort those out, then obviously you can contact us at DWP and we'd be happy to take that up on your behalf.
Okay, that's brilliant. The only thing I'm worried about is how many other carers are going through the same problem with carers allowance, not sending any communication whatsoever. When they suspend your claim, they never write to you or anything. They just stop the payment, and you have to keep ringing them and asking why my payment has been stopped. That's when they will give you a reason. I think that's something that carers allowance needs looking into. They need to improve that communication between them and carers. I'm sure I'm not the only one, I think.
I'm very disappointed to hear that carers allowance is stopped without any notification going out, because they certainly shouldn't be doing that. So, as I say, if there are any issues like that, then please contact us and we'll try and take them up for you. But as I say, that those sorts of things certainly shouldn't happen. But regrettably, with the millions and millions of transactions that happen within DWP every day, it's quite, it's unfortunate when those sorts of things go wrong. But as I say, if those sorts of issues do come up, then please contact us and we'll try and sort them out for you.
Yeah, also with regards to the communication between carers allowance and universal credit, is there any way, I don't know how the government department works, but with regards to suspending someone's payment without them letting universal credit know about it, and people are getting docked for wages, I mean, for amounts of money that they are not receiving from carers allowance because universal credit have not been informed by carers allowance that are no longer getting the benefit. Instead, it's suspended. During that suspension, you are getting no payments, and DWP universal credit are still taking that £292.
Yeah, I mean, that there is a tie-up between, but I mean, lots of the departments, obviously carers allowance unit, disability living allowance, personal independence payment, they're all separate units within DWP, but we do all talk to each other. And what should happen, if you, on the universal credit system, if you report in your journal, your online journal, that you're not receiving carers allowance, then the case manager that's dealing with your universal credit claim should contact carers allowance, for example, or whoever, and confirm that information, and then make the necessary adjustments and so on to your universal credit payment. So that's how it should work. But clearly, in your particular case, it didn't for some reason, and that's a bit of a shame. But as I say, under normal circumstances, the departments do talk to each other, and they resolve those sorts of issues in that way. So I'm sorry it didn't happen for you, but that's how it should work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Even Suno is saying thank you, ladies, for the presentation, and thank you, Dave, who always very useful and gives very useful information. That's very kind of you from Suno. Thank you very much, Dave. That was the words to you and all the people that gave a presentation in this important meeting. I know we are running out of time at the moment, and I wanted to give everyone the floor to say something, but unfortunately I won't be able to do it because I got our second speaker just signing now. Is John Paul? He's just signing now. John, can you hear me, please?
I can. Paul. Yes. Yeah. Hello. How are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Sorry about that. We could not have you earlier, so I had to give the floor for them to explain a little bit. So yeah, if we could manage in the remaining 10 minutes, that will be absolutely fantastic, John Paul, please. Yeah, is that all right for you?
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah, firstly, I apologise. It's NHS. The trust doesn't like Zoom, and so I've been locked out. So I'm now on my personal phone in a quiet corner. So I apologise. I think Judith was going to somehow try and share my presentation.
Yeah, Ramu, can you do us a favor? If you could share the presentation of John Paul, please. Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to say that Karen Ablett would like to ask something also. So Karen, do you want to ask Dave now or after the John's probably presentation? Is that all right?
I would, yeah, I'd really appreciate being able to ask a quick question.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
please
Karen, that's fine. John, John Paul, I'm very sorry. Just a quick question to Dave, please. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
How can I help?
I'd like to highlight a really important issue around appointeeship and not being transferred from income support to universal credit. We're still dealing with it a year down the line. It created massive issues. My son's in supported living with autism, PDA, and we are still dealing with this a year down the line. My complaints were ignored, everything. But as I'm sorry to nip out very briefly, but I overheard you on a forum. Can you please raise it in every arena that you're in regarding this issue, because this should never have happened. It caused some really serious damage to my son and nearly cost him his accommodation, his tenancy.
Got it? Does it resolve now?
It's still being resolved. So that they completely ignored his disability, everything. The appointeeship wasn't picked up. So if it's being missed with me and listening to the other lady, there are some really serious things that are happening that aren't being picked up that could be affecting a much wider group.
Again, for yourself, and if you have clients that have issues like that, if you drop me an email, I'll have a look at them for you.
Will do, but I just want to raise it within the group just to be really aware of appointeeship with issues where they can not follow through.
Yeah, there can be difficulties. I mean, we hope that things go smoothly, but as I say, because we deal with millions of inquiries every day, then inevitably some don't go as well as we'd hoped.
As my son's appointee, I wasn't even notified. And the first thing I knew was a month down the line, when his money didn't go into the account that I run for him, he ended up being assaulted, causing him about £2,500 worth of damage to his teeth. And he nearly got evicted from his accommodation. So it's just the ramifications were absolutely massive. And I have PTSD and stress that I've been dealing with for a few years, and I really could have done without, plus COVID.
Yeah. Well, there's something clearly not gone right with that. So drop me a line with the details and I'll have a look at it for you.
Thank you.
And that goes for anyone else who has similar sort of issues with appointeeships and so on behalf of your clients. If there's anything like that, drop me a line. My email address is in the chat and I'll have a look and see whether I can resolve it for you.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me the question.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dave. Dave, I hope we will have you in our next meeting, please. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I'm very happy to come along. Send me the invite and I'll be there.
Fantastic. We definitely will get the invitation. Yeah, John Paul, it's over to you now. It's only you. Yeah, please go on. John, can you hear me? John Paul.
Oh, here I am. Yes, I'm here. I apologize.
No worries. Go on, please. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah.
If you could play the presentation, that'd be fantastic.
Ramu, can you help us play it, please?
Can you not see my screen?
Yeah, there's a symbol at the top, and it sort of plays the whole presentation.
Oh, a symbol at the top. Can you see the transition page that I'm on at the moment or not?
Yes.
If you move the mouse to the top.
Yes.
And then move it to the right ever so slightly.
Yeah.
A little bit further to the right.
Yeah.
The mouse is not moving.
Yeah, my mouse is moving. I've got... Did you say play?
Yes.
Yeah, if you could play it, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
I cannot see play. I'm just clicking on the sheet. Did you want page number 2 or? Is this what you're talking about, John?
Yeah, if you move to the top of the screen, there's a sort of a little square with a triangle in it, and it will make it go full screen.
Oh, Phil.
No, I can't see.
Oh,
I can't see
I
that.
think if you go into slideshow and then start from beginning should come up, and then I think that automatically makes the screen bigger. Slideshow at the top, in the middle.
Start from the beginning. Is it
So-
this?
Oh, fantastic. There we are.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Lovely. Right. So I will leave my contact details on the screen. So my name's JP, or John Paul, if you want to be very formal. I have been in post for 6 months now. I am the Paediatric Transition Coordinator. There you go. It's a bit of a long title. But my job basically is to support young people with long-term health conditions to move from pediatric services to adult health services. If you can move to the next slide. Fantastic, thank you. So these are the sort of, if you want, the dictionary definitions of what transition is. I'll read them just quickly. So healthcare transition can be defined as, according to the Department of Health, the purposeful planned process that addresses the medical, also the psychosocial, educational, vocational needs of adolescents and young adults with chronic physical and medical conditions as they move from child-centered to adult-orientated healthcare systems. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Dr. Nagra, who pioneered one of the tools that I use down in Southampton, is a consultant, she's a renal consultant, describes it as the process of empowerment, which equips young people with the knowledge and skills necessary to manage their own healthcare in the paediatric and the adult services, whilst ensuring that the adult team are engaged and ready to receive them. So the takeaway points for me from there are that we're not focusing on those health labels like a lot of the healthcare system does. We're looking at the whole of the young person. We're talking about them from a holistic point of view. We're not just looking at the epilepsy or the asthma or the diabetes. We're looking at everything, okay? But the most important point for me to stress is that transition should be a process of empowerment. It's about equipping the young people where possible, but also their parents, their carers, their teachers, to support their young people as they move into adulthood. You could have the next slide, please. Fantastic. So there we go. So any young person at all, aged between 11 and 25, with a long-term health need, is able to, tap into the transition service. That's whether you've been diagnosed since a wee bubba or whether you've had a diagnosis in early adulthood. That's absolutely fantastic. Also, we're here to support families, parents and carers as well. If you cover the next slide. So it sounds very young, but in an ideal world, I would like to start the transition process once a young person gets to 11, 12 years old. This is because it should be a gradual, long process, not one that is thrust upon a child once they get to sort of 15, 16, 17. It's a confusing world, the health world, especially here in the hospital. And so the idea is that I get involved with young people at an early age and make it a gradual process, bearing in mind that if you're 16, the chances are, with some exceptions, if you are admitted to a hospital ward, you'll be admitted to an adult ward, which are obviously very different from paediatric wards, and the services that they provide are very different. I do also support young people once they have moved to adult services. But let's move on to the next slide. So the reason that we do transition is because lots of people going back 20, 30 years have learned that transition, by empowering young people and their families to manage health conditions, improves long-term health outcomes. We know that young people's health conditions deteriorate once they have transferred into the adult world. There's less support. Young people get distracted by other things. They might be non-compliant. They might not be able to speak up for themselves. They might have a learning disability, which means that they get lost in what is a very complex system. And we know that what a young person and their family experience is massively inconsistent. And so I have come into this position to try and rectify some of those things. If you could have the next slide, please. So how we go about transition is entirely dependent on you. I am happy to model the tools that we use to meet each individual's needs, okay? There's loads of amazing condition-specific information out there, which is very easily accessible. But the main tool that I use and the main structure that I use is a system called Ready, Steady, Go. I'm sure some of you have probably heard of it. If you go on to my next slide. So Ready, Steady, Go is a series of 3 questionnaires. It's quite a generic system, but the beauty of that sort of generic nature is that we can sort of model it. We can model it around the individual. So it identifies needs as the young person gets older, and it allows us to meet those needs. And so we can empower these young people or their families and carers with the knowledge and skills to meet some of the challenges that all these changes are going to provide. If you can move on to the next slide. This is just a very rough timeline. It's going to vary from each individual and each family, each circumstance, each speciality. But in an ideal world, according to the textbook stuff, I would like the transition process to start at 11, 12, 13. Nothing big or scary, just to sow the seed of the concept. Then from sort of 13 to 16-ish, and we'll go through the Ready, Steady, Go process, if that's the way that you choose to do it. And then around 16 in the hospital, you'll be transferred to adult services. I appreciate there's going to be about 1,001 questions around that, because if you've got a mental health issue, that age becomes 17. If you're diabetic, that age is 21. If you're in full-time education, that age is around 19. It's a big mess, which is why I'm here, to try and support families. But that's why it's so important to start working with young people at an early age. I want to say, once we have transferred, there's all sorts of follow-up support that I can provide. You could go to the next slide, please. There we go. So, Ready, Steady, Go. It's 3 questionnaires. The first questionnaire is ready. As you can see on here, it's a red questionnaire, which helps the young person, with the support of parents, carers, family members, to determine what information and what support they need around a whole range of issues around their healthcare, around their mental health, their sexual health, their careers, education. So the Ready questionnaire is the sort of introductory questionnaire. If you go on to my next slide. This is the Steady questionnaire. There you go. It's orange. The questions get a bit more detailed, but it carries on to the same sort of theme. And we'd like to address this at sort of 14, 15 years old. And if you go on to the next slide. It's the Go questionnaire. Again, it's available in 2 different formats. So you've got the standard version, and you've got an easy read version for young people that might have a learning disability or who may prefer working in more sort of pictorial form. That's absolutely fine. We can mold it around the individual. Like I say, if the thought of another piece of paper or another questionnaire just turns your stomach, that's absolutely fine. I'm happy to work with young people and sort of make it a paperless version. If you can move on to the next slide. So, as I say, I will work with young people up until around the age of 25. I will involve sort of specific healthcare professionals within the trust. My best friends within the trust are the learning disabilities nurses. They help me out an awful lot, and they've helped me develop a young person's passport. I'm sure you've come across lots of passports. There are all manner of them around. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we have got a passport which can be used for young people. We've developed one-page profiles. We've developed communication charts, so that when young people move into the adult world, they're supported in more ways than one. If you can move on to the next slide. So this is my job. I am here to be a point of contact. I am here to try and facilitate joined up care. I work with community health, I work with community education, social work, and I try and work within all the specialities within North West Anglia Trust, which is Stamford Hospital, Peterborough Hospital, and Huntingdon Hospital, Hinchinbrook. I aim to be a point of continuity, because I can work with people in the paediatric world and I can work in the adult world, okay? And at the moment, I'm working with all the specialities to create their own pathways. We're still at early doors. Like I say, I've only been in post 6 months, but I'm here to also audit and develop the service, and I want to learn. That's part of the reason I've come today, is to see what people want, see what people need, and to hear any sort of feedback from people that have been transferred without transition, or perhaps people that have been transferred with some sort of transition, but it's not worked out so fantastically. So I'm here to learn from you guys, basically. If you could move on to the next slide. There we are. I'll leave those details up there. So that's my email address, and that is my work mobile number. At the moment, I am quite limited by the hours that I do, but I will always get back to you as soon as I possibly can. If you prefer to text, I'm happy for you to text me. If you're happier emailing, there's my email address. You can video call me, you can call me. I'm here to be contacted. Transition is quite a complicated subject. So how do they transfer to the transition services? Any way you want. So any healthcare professional that is involved in a young person's care can contact me by these means. If you're the parent of a young person, I am more than happy for you to contact me directly. I want the service to be as accessible as possible. That's why I've developed paperwork in standard form. I've developed paperwork in easy read form. I've had it translated into 8 different languages to try and sort of facilitate ease of access. I'm happy to meet in people's homes. I'm happy to meet people in existing clinics. Yeah, my wish for the service is that it's as accessible as possible. I am based across Northwest Anglia Trust. So I spend half my time in Peterborough, half my time in Huntingdon. I spend a bit of time in Stamford. I will go anywhere, basically. So this week I've been in, I best not mention the name of the place in case it breaches confidentiality, but I've been in people's homes this week. I have met a young man with autism who hates the hospital. So I met him in his local park because that's the place where he feels most comfortable, most happy. But yes, I'm based all over the area. I realise that time is running by, so if anyone has got any sort of further questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Or please do use those contact details that are on the screen at the moment.
Wonderful job, John Paul. Definitely. Thank you very, very much for sharing this wonderful, useful information. Honestly, we really appreciate you. And we say, I'm very, very sorry for the limited time. I know
that's all right. That's right.
due to the poor internet connection, that was a problem. But we, yeah. But anyway, thank you very much. We managed to have you anyway, so which is good. If anyone, sorry about guys, I know we run out of time at the moment, but this topic is very, very, very important. I can see everybody wants to ask a question. If you have any question, please, just come forward and ask your question before I can pass the floor to Judith. Anyways, I'm sure she has something to say. Yeah. All right, Karen. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you. John Paul, thank you very much for that. It's so needed. We've really come a cropper in your system. I've got a son in supported living who's 23. I would really like to contact with you regarding, we've had no transition whatsoever. I don't even, it's going to take a lot of time here. I've got another son who's damaged by his autism being completely missed by 4 doctors as an emergency, and it's another personal story, but we've really been failed by the NHS locally. I'd know some, a lot have. If you would be happy to have a conversation at some point regarding both of them.
Did you manage to get my contact details?
I have, yes. Is it best to email you or to phone you?
I mean, find it easy, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. John Paul, don't worry, we will share your information, your details, your contact details to everyone.
Please do. Share it far and wide.
Everyone will get your contact details, yeah. Thank you very much for that one anyway. So this is a very important message from Ramu. He said, please note, delivery for refreshment will be late today. So it will be delivered between 1 to 1:30, please. Yeah, you can all expect your deliveries to be delivered between 1 to 1:30, please. Yeah. Judith, the floor is yours. I'm very, very sorry. I do apologize again. I know we're out of time. We're supposed to be finishing 12:30, but this, like I said, this topic is very, very, very important, honestly speaking. That's why we are late a little bit, but sorry about that. Judith, it's over to you. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to ask Karen, is that your legacy hand, or you would like to ask again something? Okay. All right. So
My apologies.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. So huge thank you to everyone who attended this session, and we can see how important it is to make a discussions here and to listen all these very important issues that parent carriers face. So thank you very much for attending our session today, and thank you for your contribution helping for parent carriers. So special thanks for our speakers, for all our speakers here, Karen, Linda, John Paul, Dave, Jonathan. Thank you very much, and thank you for your very informative and very useful for parent carers presentations and all information you sharing with us. Thank you. It helps for parent carriers. I'd like to remind you and ask you to fill out that feedback form for us, which is in chat field now, because it's very important for us getting funding to help parent carriers. So your feedbacks is very important to us. So please do that now. Yeah, and thanks to everyone for today's session, and we hope to see you on our next session on June 28th. So we will send to you invite for that one session. And also I'd like to remind everyone that it is very important to fill out a book-in 24 hours before the session. Yeah, so please do that also. Now thank you very much for attending our sessions, for cooperating with us, for sharing your information with us. Thank you very much.